Today, we explore how this date completely reshaped our world across five powerful dimensions: culture, education, finance, politics, and technology. This day proves that history never rests. Let's dive into the fascinating interconnected events of this date that continue to influence how we live, think, and innovate today. So, without much further ado, let's go.
Imagine it's the middle of summer, the year is 1099, and crusaders are just marching through Jerusalem in this brutal, violent conquest.
Yeah, it's a pretty grim picture.
Right. But now jump forward to that exact same summer day in 1975. Two astronauts, an American and a Soviet, are actually shaking hands in the vacuum of space.
Which is just wild to think about. So today, we're doing a deep dive into this really fascinating stack of historical archives to look at one specific date, July 15th.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because we aren't just looking at one era for this. We're tracing a line across a whole millennium.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a totally random coincidence at first, but when you look closely at the sources, this one calendar day keeps acting as this bizarre focal point for massive shifts in human history.
Basically, events that fundamentally redefined who holds power.
Exactly.
So let's start with that 1099 event you mentioned. The First Crusade captures Jerusalem on July 15th. The archives actually describe an absolute bloodbath.
Yeah, they claim they rode in blood up to their horses' bridles near the Temple of Solomon.
Wow. Just brutal.
It is. It's the ultimate expression of absolute, unrestrained violence used to claim authority. And what's fascinating here is how that single day just echoed through medieval history.
Right, because that victory established a religious feast day celebrated for centuries.
Exactly. It cemented these, deep opposing cultural memories for both Christians and Muslims.
Okay, let's unpack this. If 1099 was about, seizing power with a sword, I look at what happened on the exact same date, just over a century later, July 15th, 1215.
Ah, right. The Magna Carta.
Yes. The English Royal Chancery officially drafts the first formal version of it. So 1215 feels like the exact opposite of 1099. It's about restricting power with a pen.
Yeah, forcing King John to accept legal limits on his own tyranny.
Exactly.
Precisely. That moment really laid the groundwork for modern democratic constitutions.
Because authority was suddenly defined by law.
Right, defined and limited by law, not just by whoever had the biggest army.
Which is a massive shift in how we govern ourselves. But then, as we move into the 20th century, the constraints humanity starts breaking aren't just legal, they're physical.
Right, like in aviation.
Yep. On July 15th, 1916, William Boeing officially incorporates his aviation company. And this is right after he built this fragile little seaplane out of wood and linen.
Wood and linen, right,
Yeah.
which is a huge mechanical leap for the time.
Yeah.
Boeing's venture fundamentally shrank the physical globe,
Yeah, it made mass global transit an actual reality.
Exactly.
But physical mobility is only half the battle if geopolitical borders are frozen shut.
Oh, for sure.
Which brings us to July 15th, 1971. President Nixon shocks the world by announcing he's going to visit communist China. I've always wondered about the mechanics of this, like why then?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it was a masterful, if maybe cynical, strategic wedge.
How so?
So Nixon used the China visit to pit two communist superpowers against each other. By warming up to Beijing, he basically pressured the Soviets into coming to the negotiating table.
Which directly led to arms limitations, right?
Yeah, and eventually, some reluctant cooperation.
Which brings us to exactly 4 years later, July 15th, 1975. That American Apollo spacecraft and the Soviet Soyuz launched to perform the first international handshake in orbit.
It's such a powerful image.
It really is. It's like all three of these events are about breaking gravity, whether it's literal gravity for Boeing and the astronauts or the heavy, frozen geopolitical gravity of the Cold War.
That's a great way to look at it. The massive state-funded competition of the Cold War ended up forcing these technological and diplomatic leaps that connected the globe in ways we hadn't seen before.
And eventually, that massive state-level communication technology just kind of trickled down into our pockets.
Right, leading right to July 15, 2006, Twitter officially launches to the public.
A total revolution in microblogging.
Absolutely. Suddenly, the infrastructure to broadcast globally didn't belong exclusively to a state or a corporation anymore. I mean, it belonged to anyone with a cell phone.
Which became absolutely critical exactly a decade later, July 15th, 2016. The sources detail a violent military coup attempt in Turkey.
Yeah, orchestrated by a group called FETÖ.
Right, which the archives describe as a movement that had quietly infiltrated military and state institutions. But the coup wasn't thwarted by rival politicians or, like, a different army.
No, it was regular people.
Exactly. Millions of unarmed citizens used social media to organize instantly. They flooded the streets to stand against tanks and F-16s.
It's really the ultimate culmination of our timeline. This raises an important question about how decentralized power has actually become.
Because back in 1099, power just belonged to the army with the most swords.
Right, but by 2016, collective civilian willpower, organized and mobilized in real time through technology, well, it proved it could outmatch a heavily armed military force.
So what does this all mean for you? It means when you look around your modern world, the flights you take, the legal rights you rely on, the apps on your phone, you are living in a reality shaped heavily by the events of this single calendar day.
It's basically a millennium-long story of power moving from absolute kings and empires down to the everyday individual.
It really is. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder. Does the calendar merely record random historical coin tosses?
Or is there some underlying psychological rhythm to the year that makes the middle of July a natural flashpoint for human ambition and upheaval?
Hi viewers, family and friends. How did you like the content of this video? Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Please write in the comments your name and the place you are watching from. Since our viewing family is spread all over the world, it will be nice to know which city and the country you are watching from, so I can say hello to you. Science and technology. Reading and listening to the historical accomplishments on this date of those who have gone before us, I, as a professional engineer with interest in structural engineering, energy-efficient buildings, ICF construction, and as Google Docs expert with interest in spreadsheet-based solutions, draw inspiration to ask of myself the million-dollar question. What would I accomplish today? Think about the Japanese practice of Kaizen. Let me know in the comments. What would you accomplish today? Your subscribing to the channel inspires me to post more such videos. Thanks for your patronage. See you in the next video. Sincerely, Yogi Anand.